Not only are plastics showing up in fast food, the concern is also how much fast food we are consuming and what's in the food itself. Well, please welcome dietitian Erin Palinski-Wade to give us the skinny on the supersize. Erin, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Tell us, Erin, what is the biggest problem we face when it comes to fast food itself?
Yeah, I mean, really the biggest problem is the frequency that we're eating it, right? Because when we're eating it on a regular basis, week after week, this is where we have the biggest health concerns. When you look at the data, you look at the research, they found that just eating fast food twice a week or more can increase the risk of metabolic syndrome, that precursor to type 2 diabetes, by as much as 86%. And I mean, I know you know this too, but it's the food, the majority of the menu options that we see on fast food, they're energy rich but nutrient poor. So we're getting a lot of calories, but we're not getting the beneficial nutrients. Instead, we're getting nutrients that could be deterrent to health. And when we do this too often, that's where we see the biggest impact on weight, on visceral fat, that dangerous midsection fat that can drive heart disease risk and diabetes.
Erin, you go on and you say there are 3 additives that are making us sick. So we need to address these. I guess the first one you talk about is phosphate additives. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so phosphate additives, they're added to food because they enhance the flavor, they, help with the food. But what we find is, yes, they're derived from the mineral phosphorus, and we need this in the diet, but it's the excessive amount that we're consuming that's the concern. So even in healthy individuals, if we have too much phosphorus in the body, what we see is that there is a risk for bone loss. We see that there could potentially be negative impact on the heart. But what I think is really interesting is some research suggests that when we have high levels of phosphorus in the blood, we're actually less likely to be physically active. So we're eating this food, it's raising our phosphorus levels and potentially making us more sedentary. So we know that's not going to be beneficial for health.
All right, moving on, Erin. We have a second additive, and you say it's making them sick. This one is potassium bromate.
Right. So with this one, we find this is added into the food because it's really improving the texture of the flour, right? It's helping it rise. And the majority of it really does get used up in cooking. The concern is when it's left over in the food. And even some countries like Canada and the UK and in Europe, they ban this in foods because there does seem to be a potential link in animal studies to cancer risk. The FDA does allow it in our food, but they do recommend that bakers who are using flour, they use unbromated flour. So I think that suggests it's not something we want to be consuming a lot of in our diet.
You talk about a third additive that potentially is making us sick, and that's propylene glycol. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so with this additive, again, what we're seeing is this really keeps the food more fresh, right? It's keeping the moisture in the food. And in small amounts, it is approved. The FDA does approve it and classifies it as generally recognized as safe. But when we look at people who have underlying kidney disorders or liver disorders, they don't necessarily process this as well because of the way it's processed in the body. So there is a risk there. But also just when you looked at where this additive is found, it's in cosmetics, it's in antifreeze. So again, It's not something that sounds so appetizing to consume on a regular basis.
Antifreeze doesn't sound too appetizing.